someone's hot take.
So, live in the moment.
Yeah, that's a crazy take. Crazy take is that. What was the take that they deserved it?
That's why I didn't want to pair.
Right.
Here you go. Dave Portnoy reposted this.
You found it? All right, here. Put it.
It's only 10 seconds.
Which a shooting like this happens.
You can put the headphones on. You can hear it.
And again, I emphasize what you just emphasized. We don't know any of the full details of this. That we don't know if this was a supporter shooting their gun off in celebration, or so we have no idea about.
That's what the crazy thing was.
Oh, that's it.
Yeah, if it was a supporter shooting their gun off in celebration.
What? Someone shot their gun off in celebration and killed him.
You shoot celebration guns in the air.
Oh, God.
Just,
what a crazy take. Like, it might not have been someone assassinating someone for the wrong opinion.
Joe Rogan just tore into MSNBC, and honestly, you couldn't script a meltdown this wild if you tried. We're talking about a network tripping over its own shoelaces while trying to spin the shocking, tragic, and downright unbelievable aftermath of Charlie Kirk's assassination. The reporting was so bad it almost felt like satire, except the stakes couldn't be darker. What happens when comedy meets catastrophe and the so-called news becomes the joke? Buckle up. This is Chaos Unfiltered.
Which then lead to hateful actions. And I think that's the environment we're in, that people just, you can't stop with these sort of awful thoughts you have and then saying these awful words and not expect awful actions to take place.
Matt.
And that's the unfortunate environment we're in.
Turning Point USA has confirmed that he was shot.
he doesn't deserve that. Nobody deserves that.
So, were you saying that MSNBC had a crazy take on it? Mm-hmm. What was... Like, it might not have been someone assassinating someone for the wrong opinion.
Huh.
Fuck.
Well, why does something like that have to be spun?
Their ideology.
No, I know, but I'm just saying it's like...
I mean, they want to try to pin it on a Trump supporter with a crazy Trump supporter with a gun.
Right.
Going wacky.
Of course.
We don't know if it was a supporter shooting off a gun in celebration. Because, they do that.
Right.
A lot of folks are just constantly out there shooting off guns at large gatherings in celebration.
Joe Rogan saw MSNBC stumble into a self-inflicted disaster, and let's just say he didn't exactly offer them a participation trophy. Picture this. One of the most shocking political assassinations in years, emotions running high, a nation glued to their screens, and then MSNBC's big moment. Instead of showing restraint, empathy, or, basic journalistic survival instincts, they managed to do the one thing you're not supposed to do. Take a tragedy and somehow make the victim sound like the problem. It's like crashing a funeral, grabbing the microphone, and announcing that the deceased really should have been more careful about being alive. This wasn't just an awkward slip of the tongue. This was a masterclass in stepping on your own shoelaces, falling down the stairs, and then blaming gravity for the embarrassment.
That is, that's a, wow.
There's going to be a lot of people celebrating this. It's so scary. It's so dangerous, too, to celebrate or to in any way encourage this kind of behavior from human beings. He's not a violent guy who's talking to people on college campuses. Wasn't even particularly rude. Who's tried to be pretty reasonable with people.
Everything I saw seemed reasonable.
He's a very intelligent guy.
Yeah.
Whether you agree with him or don't. And there's a lot of stuff that I didn't agree with him on. That's fine. You're allowed to disagree with people without celebrating the fact they got shot.
But you can't.
Enter Matthew Dowd, a man whose job was supposedly to provide political analysis, not accidentally rebrand himself as the poster child for bad timing. Asked about the environment in which such a shooting happened, he decided it was the perfect opportunity to discuss Charlie Kirk's divisive rhetoric. Translation: let's pivot from national mourning to a TED Talk on words having consequences. Live on air.
When something happens current, like right now with this one with Charlie Kirk, it doesn't seem real. It seems very surreal.
I am filled with grief and anger at the heinous assassination of Charlie Kirk on a college campus in Utah.
It's going to take a long time before we reference this as something that happened. Like right now, it just doesn't seem real. It seems so crazy. It's not registering.
Charlie inspired millions, and tonight, all who knew him and loved him are united in shock and horror. Charlie was a patriot who devoted his life to the cause of open debate and the country that he loved so much, the United States of America.
Is he a friend?
No, I met him once.
Okay.
I met him once at a gun range of all places. He was a nice guy. It's a f***ed up time. People are so divided in this country.
He fought for liberty, democracy, justice, and the American people. He's a martyr for truth and freedom, and there's never been anyone who was so respected by youth.
So divided, and there's so many people that love it. They love that we're divided, and they profit off that division, and they stoke the fires, and they do it for their own profit, and it's so gross. And to encourage this kind of thing, one of the most horrific things that you could do after someone dies horribly like this is celebrate.
Now, to be fair, in another context, at another time, a conversation about rhetoric and its ripple effects might have been worthwhile. But timing is everything. And when someone has just been gunned down in cold blood, opening with, well, maybe he was part of the problem, isn't exactly the soothing balm the nation was looking for. It's like trying to comfort someone at the hospital by reminding them that kale smoothies would have probably prevented their heart attack. The backlash was instantaneous, and not just from the usual suspects. Sure, conservatives were furious, and understandably so, but even moderates and journalists who usually bend over backwards to defend media colleagues were left squinting at the screen in disbelief. President Rebecca Cutler called the comments inappropriate, insensitive, and unacceptable, which is corporate speak for you had one job and you blew it so badly that we're updating your security badge status to denied. Imagine being fired for saying something so tone-deaf that even MSNBC, the network famous for occasionally getting high on its own sanctimony, looked at it and said, nope, this one's beyond redemption.
Stuff going on in this world. And we saw a right-wing conservative host, because that's what he was, and that's what they labeled Charlie Kirk. And we saw this man speaking in Utah at Utah Valley University, and we saw him struck by a bullet in his neck. We saw blood gushing out immediately, and it didn't take long before he was pronounced.
Dowd tried to clean up the mess with a classic modern apology posted on Blue Sky, because apparently Twitter is too mainstream for public groveling these days. His explanation? He didn't mean to blame Charlie Kirk, he was just commenting on the broader toxic environment, the one where words eventually lead to actions. Which sounds noble on paper, until you remember he said it minutes after a man was assassinated. It's like showing up at a wedding, giving a speech about divorce rates, and then insisting you were only trying to raise awareness. And here's where Joe Rogan enters the chat, metaphorically flexing like a heavyweight in a debate ring. If irony were a protein shake, Rogan just got his max daily dose. The fun part is watching MSNBC scramble to control the damage. They didn't just fire Dowd, they had to spin the whole situation as proof of their integrity. You know the drill. See, we police ourselves, we're ethical, we won't tolerate insensitivity, as if we're supposed to give them a standing ovation for cleaning up the mess they created in the first place. That's like congratulating someone for remembering to flush after clogging the toilet.
A conversation where your argument is more compelling than his.
Sure.
That's what people should be celebrating, discourse. You know, we used to do that.
Do some homework and bring it to the table.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
know?
horrible. It's horrible. This podcast has been a lot about violence, man.
It has, but not this kind.
No.
I'm sorry, not something is so in the moment right now from someone this current.
Yeah.
That we see and are aware of daily. Right?
Yeah. I mean, he's one of those young influencers, right?
Meanwhile, social media was a circus. The left had to awkwardly tiptoe around the fact that one of their own talking heads just handed conservatives the moral high ground on a silver platter. The right, on the other hand, was having the time of their lives, roasting MSNBC like it was Thanksgiving dinner. Clips of Dowd's comments went viral, not because anyone wanted to rewatch them, but because people couldn't believe they actually came out of his mouth. The replay button wasn't about entertainment, it was about confirming you didn't hallucinate the stupidity. And the reactions weren't just confined to Twitter threads and cable news panels. Real-world consequences started piling up. It turned into a purge of bad takes. Somewhere out there, a college professor thought it would be funny to post a snide remark about Kirk's death, only to discover that job security is a lot like common sense. You don't miss it until it's gone. The whole ordeal exposed something much deeper than MSNBC's PR blunder. It opened up a national debate about free speech, responsibility, and the blurry line between critique and cruelty.
No matter your color or creed, no matter your ethnicity, no matter your upbringing, your background, etc., when you wear the same uniform as somebody else, when you play in the same league as another contemporary.
On one hand, yes, words matter. They can inspire, they can wound, and sometimes they can fuel violence. But on the other hand, context matters just as much. There's a time and place for that discussion, and maybe, just maybe, 5 minutes after someone's been assassinated is not the ideal slot, unless your career goal is to trend under insensitive clown. What made this entire fiasco even juicier for Rogan and his audience was the sheer hypocrisy. MSNBC has built its brand on constantly framing itself as the responsible adult in the media room, lecturing others on ethics, while Fox News gets painted as the wild, reckless cousin. Of course, Dowd's defenders tried to argue that he was simply misunderstood, that he was clumsily attempting to contextualize the toxic political environment, but that's like saying someone who accidentally set their kitchen on fire was just experimenting with new lighting techniques. Intentions don't matter when the flames are already consuming the curtains. If the firing of Matthew Dowd was MSNBC's version of damage control, then public reaction was a 5-alarm fire they couldn't put out.
When Charlie Kirk got assassinated, everyone in the political space stopped. If you go on Twitter right now, you look at the top 30 trending words, 30 for 30 has to do with Charlie Kirk. Think about the amount of influence this young man had. 31 years old, he's at this event, his wife's there, his kids are there, he's getting assassinated, and we don't even know who it is. Kash Patel tells us they have the subject, they released the subject. I just have way too many questions right now.
What's at the top of the list of your concerns in terms of who did it and why?
So let's process that. Let's look at all the options of who this.
The network wanted this to be a quick cleanup job, tossed out under the bus, issue a stern statement, and hope the internet forgets by lunchtime. But the internet never forgets. The internet saves receipts, laminates them, and then sells them as NFTs just to make sure future generations can laugh at your mistake. Conservatives pounced on the comments instantly, branding them as proof of media bias and moral bankruptcy. To them, this wasn't just a bad take, it was an entire worldview laid bare. A tragic assassination occurs, and instead of focusing on the loss of life or the violence itself, a network analyst basically says, yeah, but wasn't he kind of asking for it? You don't need a PhD in political science to understand how badly that was going to land. Defending Dowd was like volunteering to juggle chainsaws blindfolded. It was guaranteed to end in disaster, so most of them stayed quiet or awkwardly pivoted to talking about gun control as if MSNBC's little blunder had never happened. On social media, the memes were relentless. Screenshots of Dowd's face mid-comment were plastered with captions like, "When you realize you've just ended your career live on air," and "New record, fastest trip from studio to unemployment line." It wasn't subtle, but it didn't need to be. The humor worked because the comparison was painfully accurate.
No one that has different opinions, no one deserves that.
No.
This is horrible.
No.
But I know people are going to celebrate it because this is a fucked up time, and people have really fallen into this trap of us against them.
But it's also going to make people not want to be as courageous or not want to be as forthright with the things they believe. It's going to put people on guard.
It could. It could
do the opposite.
Yeah.
I get that, but there's also going to be that sort of ingrained thing now.
Mm-hmm. You're correct. Yeah.
Joe Rogan seized on all of this with glee. On his podcast, he didn't even need to stretch for material. The story practically told itself. He painted MSNBC as a network so out of touch that it could turn a national tragedy into a PR crisis within minutes. Rogan's comedic timing thrives on absurdity, and here he had an endless buffet. The fact that a supposedly seasoned analyst couldn't grasp that maybe, just maybe, the murder victim wasn't the right person to critique in that moment was too delicious to ignore. Rogan also hammered on the double standards. Imagine if the roles were reversed, he mused. What if a conservative network had reacted to the assassination of a left-leaning figure by implying they kind of deserved it because of their rhetoric? the outrage would have been biblical. That hypocrisy was catnip for Rogan. The deeper problem for MSNBC wasn't just Dowd's firing, it was that his comments opened the floodgates for everyone else's bad takes. Suddenly, reporters, professors, and internet pundits who thought they were being edgy by joking about Kirk's assassination were finding themselves in hot water. What made the story even juicier was how MSNBC tried to spin the firing as proof of their accountability.
I'm sorry for your loss today because I understand you were a friend of Charlie Kirk, so can I just start off with your reaction to it?
I'm speechless. I oscillate between unbelievable sadness and righteous indignation. You know, I'm filled with rage. It's impossible that I escaped all of this 50 years ago from the Middle East, but now it's the way that we adjudicate debates. We killed a young father because we disagreed with his ideas. It's grotesque.
They put out carefully worded statements about their commitment to empathy and sensitivity, hoping the public would see them as responsible actors. But Rogan pointed out the obvious. If they were truly committed to empathy, the comments never would have aired in the first place. You don't get a medal for locking the barn after the horse has already been stolen. Meanwhile, Dowd himself was out there trying to salvage what was left of his reputation. His apology on Blue Sky was a masterclass in modern PR damage control. Part clarification, part mea culpa, part please don't cancel me permanently. He insisted that he hadn't meant to blame Kirk personally, that he was speaking more broadly about the culture of hateful rhetoric leading to violence. In other words, the old "I was taken out of context" defense. He framed it as classic media spin. Say something outrageous, get roasted for it, then act shocked that people didn't understand your brilliance. It's the same playbook that keeps pundits employed long after their credibility has expired. But this time, MSNBC decided the stink was too strong to keep around. Dowd wasn't just a liability, he was an anchor dragging the whole ship down.
We were talking about assassinations earlier, whether it's Kennedy or RFK or, you know, you think of him in the past. You think of him like, you don't, when something happens in the current, like right now with this one with Charlie Kirk, it doesn't seem real.
No.
It seems very surreal.
It does.
It seems like
it does.
It's going to take a long time before we reference this as something that happened. Like remember he got shot and killed. Oh yeah. Like right now, it just doesn't seem real. It seems so crazy that it's not registering.
It's not. No.
And then came the bigger cultural questions. How much responsibility do media personalities actually have for their words? Should analysts and reporters be free to speak candidly, even if it means sounding cruel in a moment of tragedy? Or should networks enforce stricter guardrails, reminding everyone that sometimes silence really is the best option? These debates filled op-eds, podcasts, and Twitter threads for days. But the funny part is, Rogan didn't need to solve the philosophical puzzle. Instead, the media managed to make the story about themselves, about their inability to read the room, and about their habit of turning every crisis into a ratings spectacle. Rogan capitalized on that disconnect, mocking the idea that MSNBC wanted to be taken seriously while simultaneously proving, in spectacular fashion, that they couldn't even manage basic decency when it counted. And the best part? This wasn't a one-day news cycle. The story had legs. Every time someone else got fired for making a tasteless joke about the assassination, it reminded the public of Dowd's original blunder. Every headline about an educator suspended or reporter terminated kept the wound fresh. It was like death by 1,000 cuts, with MSNBC and its allies bleeding credibility with each one. Rogan didn't even have to keep hammering. Other people's stupidity did the job for him.